Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet you'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Well, maybe I could bring my microphone around. There we go. Hey, everybody. Good morning. It is great to see you. How are you doing today? I hope well. I am busy. I have a lot going on right now. I've got several projects that I suddenly had to do, so there was no table talk last night, and I am looking forward to, after the grind today, kind of strapping myself to the chair here and getting a whole lot of work done today here at the computer, while also hopefully going for a walk. So hopefully everybody is doing great. Welcome to my home, welcome to the office, and welcome to the morning grind. So here we go. Today's main topic is going to be looking at the Advanced Fantasy Old School Essentials. And we're going to see how that changes things and what it does differently. I saw this, I think it was on Reddit someplace. I saw this this line that said, any sufficiently advanced game of OSE or OSR, any sufficiently, long-running game of an old school Renaissance kind of game, an OSR game, inevitably becomes Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And so I thought that was funny. And so, but in this case, here the OSE just did become Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. At least I think that's my understanding of it right here. So we've got the original and then the advanced version. And of course, in Dungeons and Dragons, both of those kind of ran parallel to each other for a while. And so now here they are again, running parallel again. So, all right. So we got Better with Bacon is here. And I am still watching Better with Bacon's videos. I'm going to rewatch the one about the archetypes that the Game Master portrays. I watched that. I don't think that was last night. I think I was doing something else. A couple of nights ago, I watched that one, and I thought because I thought that we were going with the different archetypes, the different like character archetypes, but we're talking about the actual role that the Game Master himself portrays at the table. I thought that was really interesting. I'm going to watch it again, and then I'll comment. So please go over to Better with Bacon's channel and see if you're looking for a quite detailed look at the role of the Game Master and archetypes in RPGs. And hey, good morning, Sable. I've got coffee this morning. I was warming up some coffee. It's some older coffee, but hey, it still checks out. The my backer kits. I didn't know about this. The Titter Pig Rancher says my backer kit fulfillment for the Unnatural Selection add-on to Shadow Dark finally arrived yesterday, and it's gorgeous. I don't know anything about that. All right, so let's just go ahead and get into it. I don't suppose there are announcements or anything this morning. I've got some things going on, but they're not announcement worthy for the morning grind. So we're just going to go right into old school essentials right here. But first, let's do a breathe and sip. Let's do 2 deep breaths, complete inhales. Deep breath, 2 deep 2 deep breaths. Then complete exhales and take a sip of your favorite beverage this morning, and then we will get into the old school essentials. All right, here we go. Let's breathe. And sip. There we go. All right. All right, let's take a look at what we got this morning. So I got the PDF right here, and I have not really even looked at this hardly at all. I have been reading like everything on Reddit, from the OSE Reddit and the OSR Reddit over the last few days when I had time during the day and could scroll a phone. I don't know what that creature is. But this is the Player's Tome for the Advanced Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy Player's Tome. Let's take a look at what's inside. So I think one of the major things here is that we are splitting out the character races from the character classes, which I started with AD&D 2nd edition. So my first edition of Dungeons & Dragons was Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. And so that's much more how I remember things from the very beginning, the split character classes and character races. Although I've got to admit that going back and seeing the OSE and just some, race as class, each character fulfilling an archetype fast. I'm thinking about when I'm playing with the nephews, I've been thinking about this quite a bit. Fast is good. Probably won't go through character creation with them. I mean, I don't really see the need to. I've got the different starter boxes with all different kinds of characters in them. Why not just pick out a character and run with it? And in that case, if you're doing that, they're already used to playing the elf or the dwarf in Hero Quest. Why not why not just have them do that? If the elf or the dwarf fulfills this iconic role in an adventuring party like they're familiar with from Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or for other things, hey, let's just run with it. Might as well. Oh, Better with Bacon says my first edition was the same. That's why I had to get the reprints back here that I've referenced on the show, because the reprints of the basic, the player's handbook, the monster manual, and the and the Dungeon Master's Guide, because they got a lot of use. Good morning, Jason. Let's see. As much as I love 2E, I have to admit, in hindsight, it's mostly because of the settings like Dark Sun and Planescape and Birthright. the game did get significantly more crunchy compared to AD&D and BCMI. All right, so what is this? So what are we doing here? So let's just go to just say that about this game. We probably won't look at all this. Of course, there's a lot of spells in here too. So what is old school essentials? And actually, we're kind of having this discussion on the Discord as well. I guess like we were talking about Against the Dark Master, and I did go over Against the Dark Master on the show. But like, is that part of the old school Renaissance? I mean, I could say yes or no. But when I was thinking about using the OSR term, I was definitely thinking about a return to Dungeons and Dragons. But of course, Rollmaster was out there. You know, MERP was out there. So that could be, but at least I was thinking about when I was thinking about OSR games, I was kind of thinking about things that were derived from Dungeons and Dragons. So let's see. We know what a role-playing game, so this says an old school role-playing game styled after the beloved games of the 70s and 80s. So that is a bit more expansive than I was thinking. Relatively rules-light game where the rules are kept simple in order to let imagination and fast-paced action take the spotlight. A streamlined rule set with the books carefully structured for maximum usability during play. And a modular game that can be easily expanded for play in many different fantastic genres and game worlds. And that's the part that I've really been enjoying. To be able to take the bones of the game and then build something else out for it. So Advanced Fantasy right here, Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy consists of a heady mixture of the best of 1970s and 80s fantasy gaming. Streamlined core rules founded in the tradition of the 1980s basic expert set, beloved for their robustness, simplicity, and extensibility. Extra classes, options, monsters, and magic inspired by the wondrous flavors of the 1970s advanced first edition game. The combination of these influences results in fantasy gaming of the best of both worlds. Let's see. Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy provides game rules to play in a fantasy setting inspired by the advanced first edition rules. The fundamental elements of such settings are as follows: peril and adventure. Players take on the role of characters who are drawn to confront danger in search of wealth, ancient secrets, and wonder. These bold individuals are known as adventurers and are the focus of the game. The danger and reward of these adventures are most commonly found in three types of locations: wilderness, dungeons, and the underworld. Oh, Jason says my old school D&D is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd E. So a lot of people around here with that one. Yeah, and we did, a friend of mine loved Dungeon Crawl Classics, and he was the one that told me about it. He was like, "Oh, man, Dungeon Crawl Classics," and he was talking about the 0 level gauntlet and all of that. And so I've got it over here, and we went over it on the grind. So if you want to hear us talk about Dungeon Crawl Classics and kind of do a read through of the book, Dungeon Crawl Classics, we did go through. And as I recall, I think that we really enjoyed a lot of the material in it. There were some great ideas in it. Better with Bacon says, I rather love DCC. There are some great ideas. It's and a lot looks like a lot of fun with a lot of the magic tables. So it's table heavy. It's table heavy with all the roll to cast and then your spells and how they go. I mean, it probably would be fun. Okay, so wilderness. Forbidden dungeons as old as the world, swamps haunted by the spirits of ancient tribes, wild mountain ranges, the uncharted reaches of high seas, any outdoor space where peril and adventure can be met is classified as wilderness. Dungeons, forsaken ruins, hiding long-forgotten treasures, primal caverns where strange beasts dwell, subterranean cities of alien splendor or unimaginable wealth. Any indoor or subterranean space where peril and adventure can be met is classified as a dungeon. Whereas the underworld, combining features of both dungeons and the wilderness, the underworld is a vast realm of caverns, tunnels, waterways, and even subterranean seas, which stretch for hundreds or thousands of miles beneath the feet of surface dwellers. Okay. Oh, there is. So there is a DCC 50 adventure bundle going. I think it ends tomorrow. Oh. The character funnel is an exceptional character generation process, second only to Mongoose Traveler 2nd edition. And sometimes DCC is the best. I don't think we've looked at Traveler here. Lamentations of the Flame Princess is still my favorite OSR system. I don't have any solid reason why. It just comes across as very elegant to me. But combine that with a bunch of random tables like in Knave or something. The rules, okay, so the rules assume it seems like a lot of people do draw ideas from Lamentations. Like we did. We're like, oh, it's doing this well. It's doing this over here well as well. What I've been thinking about recently is I want to go back and read the Lamentations take on the cleric, because if you understand the cleric, the traditional cleric, as a hybrid magic user and fighter, that okay, you have the magic user, you've got the fighter, and the cleric is this hybrid kind of class. That may not work for all kinds of depictions. It's like the Templar, the warrior monk. And I was wondering, can you change, should you change cleric to the name something else? Because I think that the cleric class in Lamentations is much more wizardly, is not as combat focused. I want to go back and review that, because that would kind of go, because I was thinking about that, because that could kind of return well, we talked about in Unearthed Arcana, where you have I think they called it the expert, the fighter, and the magic user. And that magic user can either be divine or arcane. If you, what does a less combat focused cleric look like? And I think that's what's in Lamentations. Lamentations does clerics, magic, thieves, skills, and languages very well. And then you could still have a hybrid class. You could still have the hybrid fighter magic user class. But I kind of like the idea of the less fighter type, or the more magically oriented, having both a divine and arcane side of things. Yeah, you talked about Veins of the Earth quite a bit, and I see that one brought up also on Reddit. I don't think we got to look at that one. I mean, we did look at Lamentations online. So the rules assume a setting where characters come in contact with the fantastic, otherworldly, weird, and wonderful. Treasure, hordes of long-forgotten gold, fabled objects of great magical power, artifacts created by the gods themselves. The promise of attaining treasure such as these, either for their fabulous material value or their fantastic powers, is the lure that pulls many adventurers into the perilous realm. Monsters, terrible creatures older than time, fearsome mystical beasts, chimeric biological experiments, tribes of beast-like half-men, beings from otherworldly dimensions. Such inhuman creatures lurk in the wilderness, in dungeons, and the underworld, guarding wondrous treasures. Magic, forbidden practices of dark sorcery, rituals to invoke the gods, monsters summoned from weird dimensions, sites of eldritch power, objects bound with occult energies. Magic is a powerful tool that may be wielded by characters, but also by their enemies. Sentient species, fairies, malevolent in kind, dwarves and subterranean kingdoms, bestial humanoids, mutants twisted by magic. While humans are typically the most widespread species of the game, other humanoids of equal and perhaps greater intelligence also exist. Intelligent species are available as player characters are termed demi-humans. We know our terminology here. So that was about what this game is trying to do. So we say there are 13 character classes here. The nimble acrobat, the devious assassin, the brash barbarian, the charming bard. I also think that adding in like a barbarian is well suitable for a lot of different games. The charming bard, the devout cleric, the mysterious druid, the doughty fighter, the enigmatic illusionist. So this returns to illusionist as a class. The noble knight, the sagacious magic user, the ardent paladin, the stealthy ranger. So this brings paladin, makes sense that paladin would be here. The stealthy ranger and the cunning thief. And we have 10 classic races: sinister drow, the avaricious drugar, the bold dwarf, the dark dwarf, the drugar, the bold dwarf, the graceful elf, the artful gnome, the spirited half elf, the plucky halfling, the outcast half orc, the passionate human, and the stony, I don't know how to pronounce this, Svirneblin. I suppose you don't say the F here, or too much of the S, Svirneblin. The full list of adventuring gear, hired help, domains, spells. Okay, the interesting part to me is that this says The Old School Essential book is 100% compatible with this, can be freely mixed and matched. In this way, different settings and genres can be combined. So we're not talking about, and I want to see how they do that, because, okay, if you're talking about the different classes, so this is supposed to be completely compatible, so you can come and pluck things from this and put it back in the OSE game. It says can be freely mixed and matched. So unlike with AD&D, it's not just a new game. This one's supposed to be mixed and matched. Close enough. Good. Sagacious, that's our vocabulary for the day. I love that word. In one of my attempts at designing a tabletop RPG system, I had a stat called sagacity. Let's see. So compatibility. The old school gaming scene is sitting on a secret. A huge number of games, despite having different brand names on their covers, are highly compatible. This cross-compatibility between many games means that a great wealth of adventurers, campaign settings, and rule supplements can be easily used with Old School Essentials. So Old School Essentials is 100% compatible with the 1981 edition of the world's most popular fantasy RPG, commonly known as the Basic Expert Edition, BX for short. Any material published for the Basic Expert rules can be used directly with Old School Essentials. Decades of adventures are at your fingertips. The material presented in this book represents a 100% faithful reinstatement of the rules, characters, options, and spells from the classic Basic Expert game, plus additional options and spells adapted from the advanced game. It's worth noting that errors in the original Basic Expert rules have not been slavishly reproduced. An effort has been made to correct obvious mistakes. Okay, so a lot of information here on compatibility. I'm probably going to end up having to pick up this book as well in physical form. So, experience points. So the character's advancement in the game is tracked by the accumulation of experience points. Experience points are awarded by the referee after a successful adventure. When the character has accumulated a certain number of experience points, the character's level increases. Each class specifies the number of experience points required to achieve each experience level. I want to know how this relates to gold, because we've had the gold and, gold as experience points in the OSE. So does this change this? Because that wasn't the case in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons when I was playing. Experience points were quite separate from gold. Oh, Jason, thank you very much. Jason says, I posted the link to the DCC Mega Bundle in Discord for anyone interested. It ends in 15 hours. And yeah, cross compatibility of so much and making them work together usually requires minimal alteration, can be done on the fly with little effort, which is nice because, again, how much time do you really want to prep? What's the ratio between prep time and play time? Hit points, hit dice. We've got Thaco here. The character's ability to hit foes in combat determined by their class and level. Lower Thaco scores are better. The character's Thaco score indicates which row of the attack matrix they use when attacking. The procedure for making attack is in combat. Okay. So you can use ascending AC as well here. This book presents two methods of character creation, one in the style of Basic Expert game and one in the style of the Advanced game. Using this method, using basic character creation, adventurers' primary abilities are determined by a single factor, the chosen character class. Character race. The character class chosen by the character also determines the character's race. Unless a demi-human class is selected, the character is human. Advanced character creation. Using this method, an adventurer's primary abilities are determined by two factors, their race and their class, both chosen separately. Selecting multiple classes may also be allowed. Okay, so we can do multiple classes here. Multi-classing, optional rule down there. Instead of just choosing a character class, players separately choose a race and a class. Separating the abilities granted by a character's race and class leads to a much wider range of character possibilities. For example, rather than simply being an elf, a character may be an elf fighter, an elf thief, an elf magic user, etc. Multi-classing. Optionally, players may be allowed to choose multiple classes for their character, enabling the creation of characters with a wide range of mixed abilities. For example, a magic user thief combines the abilities of both classes for a powerful subterfuge-based character. See full details opposite. Okay. Pros and cons. The major benefit of the basic method of character creation is the ease in which characters can be created. Experienced players are able to go from a blank character sheet to a finished first-level character in under 10 minutes. Excellent. The extra option in the advanced method of character creation provides an extra level of customization at the expense of a more complex and lengthy process of character creation. Hey, Michael. 2 additional options inspired by the advanced game are available in both methods of character creation for both groups that wish to use them. We've got secondary skills. And by the way, I've been thinking a lot more about our conversation about the thief that we had and how that, yes, okay, all of a sudden the introduction of the thief like also introduces skills and how that kind of must have come about historically in the game. Like, okay, if you didn't have skills in the game, not only the introduction of the thief introduces that whole side of the game. For better or for worse. That's something that's new that's there with the skill rolls. So secondary skills, this optional rule grants characters a degree of experience in a non-adventuring profession, which they have picked up at some point in their lives. And then weapon proficiency, this optional rule adds an extra level of customization, allowing players to select the types of weapons their characters are trained to use. So multi-classing, how do we do multi-classing here? Do we even need multi-classing? I mean, yes, it's fun. But that was actually one of the things. I don't think that I've ever played a multi-class character. I don't think. I think I mean, I might have. But most of the time, I stay with a single type of character. And that's one thing that I really thought was missing from several different versions. It's like, especially in 5e, it seemed like a lot of people did multi-classing. A little bit of this, a little bit of this. I'm a third level this, a second level this, a first level this. There really need to be strong reasons to not do that. You know, okay, what are you giving up if you do that? And every character to have, every character class to have a reason why there's this strong reason to be, a 20th level, just pure fighter. Oh, Titterpig Rancher is the opposite. The Titterpig Rancher says, I rarely don't multi-class. So how are they doing this here? This optional rule allows players to select more than one class for their character at character creation. This is a significant departure from the standard rules, so the ramifications of using this optional rule should be considered very carefully. Allowing multiple classes to be chosen greatly increases the complexity of the character creation process. Single-class characters tend to be overwhelmed by characters with multiple classes and who can do everything they can and more. Single-class characters advance more quickly, but the exponential nature of the class XP tables means that they are rarely more than one level ahead. In the traditional advanced rules, only demi-humans were allowed to choose multiple classes, and then only in specific combinations. The referee may consider creating combinations of allowed classes, emphasizing the different cultures of the various demi-human races. I do remember that. There was multi-classing, but there's also dual classing. I forget, there were 2 different terms. And I forget exactly the difference between them, but I do remember one of them was only something that the demi-humans could do. A character may choose up to 3 classes at character creation. The character has a separately tracked count of experience points per class. When earning XP, the total earned is split evenly between the per class XP counts. The character's prime requisite XP score is calculated separately for each class based on the prime requisites for that class. The per class adjustments only applies to XP added to that class's XP account. You got to track all of them separately. I remember doing that too. You do rarely. I mean, yeah, I know. I've never played a 20th level character. From 3rd edition onwards, it's nearly always better to multi-class. I mean, that was a big part of 3rd. That and then the prestige classes. There were too many prestige classes. I mean, I remember like one of the ones that I liked was something like the Paladin as prestige class. Now, I actually do kind of like that idea where sometimes you change classes. We've talked about this in relationship to Hackmaster before. I like the idea of there being a fighter, knight, paladin progression, but where you actually change your class. At a certain point, there's a decision that's made and you change your class. I kind of like that. And I think that the paladin as prestige class, I mean, I'm a first level paladin. What does that even mean? I'm a first level knight. Does it make sense to be like, you can't become a knight until third level? And then if you choose to make that, you go, there seems to be a natural progression from like fighter to knight to paladin that could be done, even in an old school kind of game where you're just now going off onto a new track. But I don't know how that works with other classes. It seems like if you had that for a potential for the fighter, you should have that as a potential for other classes as well. But on the other hand, maybe you don't need it because like the casting classes are more powerful at higher level anyway. Okay, so the character has a separately tracked experience class per level. When the character has gained enough XP in one of their classes, that class increases in level. Hit points. So you get a whole bunch of stuff at first level then, which are going to be slow increasing. Hit points. When determining hit points at character creation or gaining up a level, any hit points gained are divided by the number of classes. Fractions are tracked and may be added up to whole numbers later on. For example, a fighter thief character gains a thief level and the player rolls D4 for hit points. The result is a 3, meaning the character gains 1.5 hit points. Upon gaining a fighter level, the player rolls D8 for hit points. The result is a 5, meaning the character gains 2.5 hit points. The half hit point gain for the thief and the fighter adds up to a whole hit point. I don't really remember all the AD&D multi-classing or dual classing rules. I do remember splitting it, the XP. I don't remember all the rules for hit points, though. Like job systems where you need levels in specific basic classes to gain levels in advanced classes, like what you're describing, but more rigid and codified. Yeah. There would still need to be an advantage to being just whatever your highest level is, 14th level, 9th level, whatever, being a pure fighter or being a pure knight. Because not everybody who plays a fighter will want to end up as a paladin. Use the best saving throw in each value for each category and the best Thaco value for all of their classes. So you just get all the stuff at the beginning level. Creating a character. Choose a class. First level attack values. Let's see. Adjust ability scores. If you wish, you may raise your character's prime requisites by lowering other ability scores. For every 2 points by which an ability score is lowered, 1 point may be added to a prime requisite. The following restrictions apply. Only strength, intelligence, and wisdom may be lowered in this way. No score may be lowered below 9. Some character classes may have additional constraints. The level progression chart for your character's class lists your Thaco score. This indicates the chance of hitting opponents in combat. First level characters have a Thaco of 19. I was thinking about that too. Of course, I'm kind of used to in AD&D, all of the characters had a Thaco of 20. All first level characters had a Thaco of 20, which meant that the wizard and the fighter fought exactly the same way. Moving to a Thaco 19 does allow a 0th level character to have a Thaco of 20. So that potentially makes sense. I think I like that, saying, okay, so first level characters were moving to a 19 Thaco instead of a 20 Thaco. 0 level characters or characters who are not combatants and everything like that can have the Thaco of 20. Everybody starts at 19. But then should the fighter then start at 18? Kind of makes me think that they should. And of course, also in AD&D, the fighter dropped Thaco every single round, which I'm noticing is not happening here in some of these old school games. Now, Lamentations does that. Nobody else is I forget whether it's a bonus or whether it's adjusting the Thaco. I didn't go back and reread that. But of course, the fighter is getting a bonus every round, whereas you're not increasing in combat ability in the other classes. Here, I've noticed that even the fighter doesn't drop as fast as I was thinking, and other classes do drop as well. It kind of made me wonder if there should be a separate fighter Thaco that does go down every round, like have that only the fighter uses. Then you could have other martial classes like the Barbarian, which uses the OSE's fighter progression, but make a specialist fighter, again, making that class really special. And then the Barbarian could use the next step down that the traditional fighter, the fighter uses traditionally here, but then also has more hit points and, you know, all the other Barbarian kinds of things. Hey, good morning, RPG. Gen Exile, good morning. I would want to look at all of those tables with each other. So attack roll. And AC hit. I think I would reverse that. Like when I'm looking at this with my nephews, if I tell them the AC, okay, there it's AC 19 or AC 13 or 9, whatever it is. Yeah. I think I'd want the AC on top and then tell them what number to roll. If using rules for weapon proficiency, select which weapons your character is proficient with, choosing from the list of weapons usable by the character's class. Rolling hit points. I still need to do a video on rolling hit points. Armor class determined by armor and dexterity. Okay, this is the advanced method. So, okay, after rolling your abilities, select one of the races available, bearing in mind the minimum ability scores requirement for some races. Ability score modifiers. If the selected race lists ability score modifiers, adjust your character's ability scores as indicated. Bonuses that would raise an ability above 18 or penalties that would go below 3 are ignored. Then choose a class. Select one of the classes available to your race, bearing in mind the minimum ability scores required in some cases. Adjust ability scores. Then you adjust ability scores. Attack values. Rolling hit points, choosing alignment. Ability scores. Let's take, where are we going to get to? Alignment, weapon proficiencies. Okay, so let's take a look at this. This is different. So the weapon proficiency optional rule, the weapons a character can use are normally determined by their class. Two characters of the same class can thus use the same weapons with equal skill. This optional rule allows to further differentiate between the characters by limiting the types of weapons each character is trained to use. If using this optional rule, then each character is proficient with a limited number of types of weapons. The character is comfortable using these weapons and can use them in combat without penalty. Martial, semi-martial, and non-martial. See that then if you had the breakdown I was talking about, you would have fighter, martial, semi-martial, and non-martial. For the sake of determining weapon proficiencies, character classes are divided into 3 categories: martial, semi-martial, and non-martial. The category each class falls into, or super martial, I suppose extra martial, super martial, heavy martial. Make it like extra heavy cavalry or extra heavy infantry. Non-martial, semi-martial, martial, super martial. Matt says the greatest version of D&D. This one right here, the advanced OSR. Is that this one right here? Glad to have you here. I gotta go. I gotta play one more game of Hero Quest with the nephews. Then it will be D&D time. So, yeah, so right here, the category each class falls into is determined by the rate at which their Thaco and saving throws value improves as follows. Martial classes gain an improvement in their Thaco and saves every 3 levels, like the Knight. Why is that? I mean, so it takes that long for the martial classes to increase their weapon skills? This is one of those things like, well, play it before you decide to change it up. Whereas semi-martial, I mean, it's one behind. Semi-martial gain an improvement to their Thaco scores and saves every 4 levels, whereas non-martials gain 1 every 5 levels. It just seems like the martial classes are kind of behind here, where I would think they would be. Or maybe the super marshal is every 2 levels or something. I don't know. And starts a bit lower, starts at 18 instead of 19. Hey, good morning, Robert. Yeah, I'm really liking this. I am liking this. Now, in fact, what I'm thinking about doing, because I was going to play AD&D with the nephews, but I may run it out of this. Get these books before, and just run it out of this. Have the other books with us, but actually kind of behind the scenes, kind of be running out of this. Proficient weapons may be chosen only from the list of weapons usable by the class. Let's see. Initial weapon creation. Initial character creation. Before purchasing equipment, the player should note the weapons that the character is proficient with. Martial characters are proficient with 4 weapons at first level, semi-martial with 3, and non-martials with 1 weapon. As the character gains experience, they also become proficient in the use of additional weapons. Each time the character's Thaco and saving throw values improve, the character also gains proficiency with a new weapon. Non-proficient attacks. A character who's using a weapon they are not proficient with incurs a penalty to attack rolls. Martial characters suffer a -2 penalty, semi-martial -3, and non-martial characters a -5 penalty. The referee may optionally allow characters to use weapons that are restricted by race and class, applying the same non-proficiency penalty in such cases. Which does bring us to specialization. Okay, so with specialization, Prima Facie says, I'm about 20 minutes behind, but on Cleric, Templar versus Preacher type, ACKS. Wait, what is that? Does Crusader, Cleric, and Priest a more casterly fights like a wizard? Yes, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, call it a Crusader or Templar. What's the right term for what is traditionally the Cleric? That's exactly. I would call it the Priest. Yeah, I would call the more casterly one the Priest. ACKS. The Adventurer Conqueror King system. Okay, I have not looked at that one. Yeah, that one's okay. So that must be what we're talking about. The Adventurer Conqueror King system. Yeah, because for the right kind of setting, I think that makes sense. Oh, Robert, and I saw you messaged me. I've got to get back with you today. I'm sitting here at the computer all day trying to do work, but I'll try to write you back. Yeah, I saw that Robert was saying, Robert says, AI update. Anyone who would like to test the text adventure, just hit me up in the Ravenkeep Discord. I have a ton of free tokens on OpenAI. Matt says that to hit progression balances itself out with the level progression. So, like the fighters are leveling faster. Well, okay, so yes, you're right. So that's also something to think about. Everybody's not gaining levels at the same amount of time, or same amount of XP. So Matt's saying that to hit progression balances itself out because the marshals are progressing faster. Is that what we're saying? Yeah, I don't think I was necessarily thinking about the different experience point requirements. So that is important to think about, that everybody's not going up at the same rate. So weapon specialization, which I do remember being a major part of AD&D when I was playing. Weapon specialization, martial characters may optionally be allowed to specialize in a single specific type of weapon. This requires dedicating 2 weapon proficiency slots to a single weapon type. For example, a first-level martial character is normally proficient with 4 weapons. If the player chooses to specialize in a weapon, the character is only proficient with 3 weapons, the specialist plus the 2 others. And this is something that says that only martial characters can do. When attacking with a specialized weapon, the character gains +1 bonus for attack and damage rolls. Which sounds like something that a lot of times people do. Like, I remember if you could specialize, I think you did. And then, of course, we used combat tactics, and combat and tactics goes up even further into specialization, grand mastery and all of that. And I remember that generally being something that we did. Because I don't remember situations coming up all that often where, oh, I don't have my weapon with me. Now, maybe we should have. Actually, I also kind of like specialization by group of weapon. Was that something that was in Advanced Combat and Tactics? Because proficiency by weapon to me seems a bit extreme, but proficiency by like weapon group seems better. And I seem to remember that optional rule from someplace. That may have been Combat and Tactics as well. But the combating that also, okay, but also a potential problem with specialization from a character perspective would be finding magic weapons, right? So if you decide in the very beginning, okay, I'm going to specialize in this particular type of weapon, and then you find other weapons of other magic types, it may not be the type of weapon you are specialized in, and you might not even be able to use it if you're proficient with it. So that's, you're probably, because we talked about how the part of the fighter's balancing is apparently supposed to be, okay, he can use magic swords, and magic swords, if you're using the tables to generate treasure, are actually rather commonly found. So the cleric can't use those, and you're going to find like a magic mace much less frequently. So giving the fighter the magic swords is something that actually should increase the fighter's power. So in this case, well, specialization with the sword would be a good idea for the martial character. Because this does say single. Like, could you specialize in two? This apparently says you cannot. You may specialize in a single specific type of weapon. You can't specialize in swords and bows. The Terror Pig Rancher disagrees. I don't know. Fighting with an arming sword is very different from fighting with a saber, is very different from fighting with a rapier. Specializing per weapon is what you have to do in real life. And I always say that, you know, if a person is really, really good at killing you with a saber, and then you hand him an arming sword, he's probably still going to be really good at killing you with it. I think GURPS uses GURPS has weapons grouped by category. Let's see. We're talking about weapon skills. And of course, it also has the defaults. So, you know, in GURPS over here, I'm looking at this, and you know, if you know, like axe/mace is one skill, which would allow you to use the axe, the hatchet, the throwing axe, the mace, the small mace, and the pick. Like broadsword skill allows you to use a light club, broadsword, thrusting sword, bastard sword, katana, thrusting bastard sword, cavalry saber. You know, knife is large knife, small knife, wooden stake, and dagger. Pole arm allows you to use glaive, naginata, halberd, poleaxe. This seems like to me, this sounds like a more reasonable level of and of course, GURPS also has a tremendous number of different weapons, so you don't have to buy a skill for each one. Spear allows you to use spear, javelin, or long spear, you know, etc. So to me, from the gameplay perspective, that is but if you don't have that many different types of weapons as well, you could simplify the kinds of weapons. Then just specializing by weapon is fine. Better with Bacon says, I agree, Heath. There's a difference between dueling forms and actual battlefield application. On the battlefield, most edged weapons perform similarly. Most pointy weapons stab just the same. The Titter Pig Rancher says, I mean, that's true. There's a certain level of effectiveness that's just combat knowledge and experience, but specialization is about how proficient you are in using that weapon most effectively. And I think it also has to do with what the resolution of your combat system actually is. Because yeah, sure. I mean, at the highest level of, say, saber use, okay, there's probably some high specialization. Is that really what we're talking about with this? Is that level of resolution, like the highest ability with saber, what we're talking about with a D20 system, especially at just understanding weapons and weapon specialization for a first level character. Probably not. Obviously, there's nuance regarding length and weight, but edged weapons of a similar size and weight can be used quite like another. Business end goes in the enemy. Michael says hero groups by category as well. The Titter Pig Rancher says a better system would be stunts or something similar, in my opinion. So a specialist does gain +1 bonus to damage and attack rolls. Like I said, which seems like something that, now in that case, it just sounds like something that the martial classes are going to want to do. Because having to use a variety of weapons just didn't come up with as enough in my games that I played in. I mean, not to its detriment, but it's not like, oh my God, my sword is broken and I'm having to use this short sword that I'm taking a penalty with. Languages. Now, the language system from Lamentations I really liked. I would import that. Secondary skills. Okay, so here we get to non-weapon proficiencies. Which were part of AD&D. I was thinking about this too the other day, that like the more specialized you want the character classes to be, the more I think you probably don't need these. Let's see how they use them. So as a character class is assumed to be their primary profession. Yeah, okay, exactly. The character's class is assumed to be the primary profession and the focus of their training. That's why you've got the or lower Thaco. It's why you've got the higher level magic spells, all of those abilities, because what you do is your class. You're not a brewer. You're spending your time, if you're a high level fighter, you're spending your time specializing in fighting. That's what you do. And if you need somebody else to fulfill these different roles, that's when you hire somebody or have them as part of your team. But it says this optional role grants characters a small degree of experience, an additional profession called a secondary skill, which they have picked up at some point in their lives. This may be the profession of a parent or mentor, which the character has picked up by some degree, or it may simply be a skill the character practices as a hobby. I think especially also if you have, okay, here are your dungeoneering skills. Like I talked about the other day, like what if we just had a small set, which would allow the specialist class to shine by being the one that actually ups the skill in the, ups skill in your dungeoneering or adventure, because it can be wilderness too. Let's say just adventuring skills. Yeah, that's why you're going up in those skills. That's why you're not going up in pottery. Now, GURPS would be concerned about that. But why can't I take the pottery skill? I really want to do, coppersmithing. Well, you can't, because you're a cleric or you are the fighter. You're spending all of your time leveling up in your, you are a warrior adventurer, thief, whatever. You're an adventurer. That's what your skills are. If you need a coppersmith, go hire one. You're spending all of your time becoming a high-level creature. Better with Bacon says it also has to do with the experience you want at the table. I love weapon proficiency granularity. I like an arming sword being an entirely different skill set. Different swords do work differently. However, if you have used any two different swords, you can transfer those skills to new weapons. And GURPS, that's why oftentimes I do think a fighting skill. Just use fighting skill. Which in that case, it's kind of what Thaco is. If you're not using, now I notice this doesn't necessarily translate between ranged weapons and melee weapons. Now, maybe that's a difference that you want to have, because in this, if you're not using weapon proficiencies, then the fighter can equally well use a bow as well as a sword, as well as a spear, as well as a sling, right? You're not differentiating here between a melee fighter and a long-range fighter. Maybe that's the division if you were looking at the magic user class and you wanted a priestly magic user and a wizardly magic user. The mirror, maybe for the fighter, would be the melee specialist versus the range specialist. So you lose that if you're not doing weapon proficiency, right? Where was I going with that? Different swords do work differently. Oh, and GURPS has the, default. What's the default use of this skill? If you have a high value in longsword or the broadsword, that gives you a higher default in others. So GURPS does kind of handle that. But also just a base fighting skill. And then, so there's base fighting skill, which should be transferable across a whole bunch of different weapons. not necessarily range to melee, but class things that generalize across, and then some level of specialization. Better with Bacon says, but I understand systems that prefer a more general approach. Matt says it's so customizable and easy to adjust the game you want to play. Michael says, in fact, many maneuvers used with a staff can be easily transferred to a sword or a polearm. Okay, so this may have been the profession of a parent or mentor, which the character has picked up to some degree, or may simply be a skill the character practices as a hobby. Determining secondary skill. When creating a new character, the player should roll D100 and consult the table to the right to determine the character's secondary skill. If desired, the referee may allow a character to choose a secondary skill rather than rolling randomly. Secondary skills. The referee must adjudicate all uses of the secondary skills. Generally speaking, knowledge of a secondary skill allows a character to perform a basic functions of a profession at a basic level. For example, assess the value and quality of an item associated with the skill, make minor repairs to an item associated with the skill, construct simple items associated with the skill. Under no circumstances should a character following the life of an adventurer be able to approach anywhere near the level of skill a character dedicated to the profession. I kind of feel like the secondary skills here, the non-weapon proficiencies, could be dispensed with if you're really focusing on, hey, what you're doing is you're an adventurer. We're not playing a game where you are the coppersmith. How are we doing here? Okay. And now we finally get to the classes. We're closing in on an hour here, and I do have work to do today. Robert says, wow, this is a lot of meta. Does this slow down gameplay with so many variables? You're talking about the Advanced OSE in general? Or is it when you boil down Thaco and AC, it's still the same speed in combat? I'm not sure what you mean. When you boil down Thaco and AC, it's still the same speed in combat. Okay, no, I got you. I think by the time you get down to, okay, we do this. I mean, I don't think this has been that much. But you end up with a Thaco and you end up with an AC, because like that's not something that, like, this fast character that can dodge versus the heavily armored character isn't something that is differentiated here. It all boils down to an AC in combat. You got an AC of whatever it is, whether that's because you're well armored or because you can dodge, right? Hero base skill is Dex divided by 3 to get offensive, defense, combat values. Then take weapon familiarity. Well, maybe we come back to this. We've been at it for about an hour, and I do have things I've got to sit here and work on today. So if we return to OSE, I would kind of like to go through the character classes and see what they are like. So we might might return here and do a part 2 on character classes, and then also the types of races that they have in here. All right. Oh, so Brett just arrived as we were heading out. Hey, Brett, coming back on Sunday sounds great. So maybe return to this on Sunday. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm going to go try to be productive. Go forth, be creative, be constructive, and grind on. Later, everybody.